Jesus gets to rise from the dead. We don't.
Always with a great start to these introductions. Welcome to the 2-month review, the weekly podcast brought to you by Open Letter and 3%, in which we take one giant book, difficult book, break it down bit by bit, section by section, talk about it, analyze it, laugh about it, make jokes. I'm Chad Post from Open Letter Books, and I'm joined as always by Brian Wood.
Hi, Chad.
How you doing?
That's all. I was gonna do a dad joke about viruses, but fuck that. I'm fine. Let's just do this.
my setup joke. I have two jokes that I set up. One is that tomorrow is opening day for baseball, so I have a hat and my baseball shirt on that says it's not okay, which is also probably pretty appropriate. And that was gonna be my dad. And my dad bit was about preparing for baseball.
Okay, let's go right past that.
I'm going to play MLB The Show all day tomorrow, and that's it. I'm just going to start a season, and that season's going to exist. And it is going to be glorious. And this week we have a special guest, Derek Main, who does the YouTube channel Read the World and does reviews on there. How frequently do you post them?
Twice a week is usually my go-to. Right now it's a little different because the world is ending. But before the world was ending, twice a week was a good barometer.
Nice.
Thanks for having me on. Thanks, Chad. Thanks, Brian. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm great to have you. How did you get started doing that?
Well, I just had a really, really lonely niche hobby, which was translated literature, and there was not anyone. There was not anyone in my immediate world, friends or family, even folks that were readers. You know, they maybe knew Bolaño, and that would be like the extent of it, you know. So I actually did it to make friends, like most things, you know. It's just like, perhaps if I talk about this, I will find other people that like this thing. And that's how it started.
That's the last three cults that I got into were all for finding friends, and they ended up not being the best of friends. They all tried to kill me, you know, which is weird. When you're wonderfully like greeted into the cult, they're probably going to kill you. So they are not your friends. They're there to drink your gallbladder.
except with the commune / cult that Anthony and I are starting. Ours is very it's safe. No weird sex shit.
Yeah. Where are you based out of, Derek?
Raleigh, North Carolina.
Okay.
Which stores do you like to frequent down there? Seeing as I used to live and work at Quail Ridge Books. I know Apex, but I think I only went to Apex like once.
Yeah, I mean, we just moved to Apex like literally a year ago for space. We lived in Raleigh throughout. I really like the Regulator Bookshop in Durham. It's a really great spot. Flyleaf is awesome. I think I had mentioned to you before that like they did not have much in the way of open letter, and I was surprised about because it's a pretty indie hip.
Yep.
But Quail Ridge is great. I mean, they have probably the best dedicated translated literature section. But Quail Ridge is now, they've moved since you were probably here, and they're in a really kind of upscale shopping center. It just kind of attracts. It's a great store, but it attracts just kind of a different vibe. It's not like as much of a fun shopping experience, frankly, as like Flyleaf.
Yeah, I really like Flyleaf. When I worked at Quail Ridge, we were still at the whatever that Maplewood Shopping Center. What was it called? Something like that.
Yeah, like next to Whole Foods. Probably.
Right next to Whole Foods. Yep, exactly. Yeah, and that was great. That was a great little store. And the last time I went through North Carolina, it was still there, but they were moving like a few months later, like not that long after. But when I was there too, the Regulator was great when I was living there, which would have been in the late 90s. The Regulator was great, but then when I went back at some point, it seemed like they had like really fallen off. And then did they get new owners that a couple of years ago that brought them back?
I don't know. They must have though, because I'll tell you, when you walk in, like their little circle of staff picks and stuff it's basically my Twitter timeline of great translated literature. I mean,
nice.
Deep Vellum, Open Letter, Europa editions, like, and it's not, you know, you couldn't even. I'll give you a good example. When the whole American Dirt controversy was going on, you walked into Quail Ridge, there was a big American Dirt display with a ton of books and like obviously the marketing piece or whatever. When you went to Flyleaf, like they had it, you know, on a big table with a bunch of other stuff. I couldn't even find it in the Regulator. Like, so those are sort of the three different, I would say, like, you know, ways in which they interact with their community.
Interesting. That's really
Man, remember when American Dirt was a controversy? Those were the good old days.
I know, isn't that like so? That would be such a lovely controversy right now.
I wish
Oh,
it was the
man.
biggest thing happening in the book publishing world. I think I really bummed out my class today. I just was too honest. And by the end, I was like, do you guys even read right now? Like, are you reading? And they're like, no. And I was like, do you find any comfort in reading? And they're like, no. And I was like, are you going to buy a book anytime soon? And they're like, no. And I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds like a good situation for all of us. Oh, man. Anyways, I suppose we should talk a little bit about The Dream Part by Rodrigo Fresan, which is the book that we're reading this week, or this season. And this section that we're going up to is the end of the first part. So from page like 57 up through whatever, 111, and the first part, which was called That Night, Footnotes for an Encyclopedia of Sleepwalkers. But before we get into all that too, Derek, how familiar are you with Fresan? You read The Invented Part?
Yep. Just this series. This is the only work of his that I've read, is The Invented Part and then now The Dream Part.
Awesome. Have you finished The Dream Part?
I have, yep. I finished it about a month ago. I was going to wait. I read The Invented Part along with the 2 month podcast, and I loved it. It was a great way to interact with it. And then I could not wait and went ahead and piled through it.
Yeah. We were a little late getting started too.
That's all right. Yeah.
Duck's Newberry Port took a lot out of us, I think.
Yeah.
15 episode series. Like that's a monster.
I did not join you on that journey, but
it's a great book. One thing too, before we go too much into this, is that for everyone listening or watching, for up through until April 1st, the ebook of The Dreamed Part is available for free on our website. You could just download it immediately. We want to encourage people while you're in quarantine or self-isolation or staying at home or whatever term people are using, to be able to join us on every Wednesday, have some fun, relax, and we don't want the ability to not be able to get the book to be a burden. So you can just go download it right now for free. You can also get all of our other ebooks for $3.99 because we cannot ship physical copies of anything for the time being. We can't go on campus, so we can't go to our office. So I don't know what that means. So if you do want to order a physical book, we will send it to you when we can, but in the meantime, we will send you the ebook for free, just so that you have something. So well, all we can do. Anyways, how did you like The Invented Part?
I loved it. It was the, second or third best book I read that entire year. I mean, it was incredible. It took me back a little bit to I don't read that kind of like maximalist literature very much anymore, but there was a time where I was obsessed with, that level of like postmodern referential type stuff. And I felt like he was doing it in a totally fresh and different way. And one of the things I said in my review of this, and it's true of The Invented Part as well, is he does this really cool thing with the plot where there is kind of a central, really sad plot happening underneath the whole time. And it'll just be mentioned in like 2 sentences of a huge, 200-page, whatever, rant. And I really like how it's like, it's not really threads. It's kind of just sort of underneath is this actual pulsating story that is actually really painful to write, I think, and to read. So I like it a lot. I actually think you were talking about the ebook. I think you could read this first. I think you could read it in any order. Do you disagree? I mean,
I think that no, I don't disagree. I think that there's things in here that are references to The Invented Part, that if you've read The Invented Part, you know what that reference is. Like this is the section, I believe this is the section where he describes the Onarium or whatever it is. And he talks about like imagining a museum that he'd already imagined where this young couple stood in front of it and they were no longer a young couple and they kept meeting. And that is from The Invented Part. So like you would miss out on some things like that. And you might just be completely like a little bit lost at first. But once you get past this section, I think that I don't think there would be a problem. I think this section is like the tall ask if you were going to start that way. But it's not insurmountable by any means.
See, I feel lost when I start off a section with him, no matter what.
I'm always lost. Well,
And then you kind of just have to trust him, which you'll do after like 100 or 150 pages in, and be like, okay, he's a master of this. He'll guide us there. But I think the lostness would not bother me. You know?
No, I mean,
it's like dialogue is lame. I hate dialogue. All right, here's a big section of dialogue. I just like, yeah, you just sit back and enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
Right?
So with this section, one thing I realized as I was reading for today, for the third time that I've read this book, is that a lot of the things that I had reprocessed this in my mind, like this section. The section is told essentially out of order. Like it's not like what you're saying about like the real story is underlying. This section's like completely out of order. Like the thing, like if you were to put this into a chronological timeline of how things happen, the writer is going to write a script about dreams. There's writing for about dreams for a TV or film script or place, whatever production. And so he goes to this place where they're researching dreams to try and learn about how dreams work. There he meets Ella, who's from his dream, and they're able to see his dream in there, and that is the girl that he sees. They then make love and have the whole long conversation. And the next morning, she tells him that they're trying to do an experiment in which they're going to make your dreams efficient, and that you could work in your dreams. There wouldn't be dreams like they are now. And then that leads to the White Plague, which is the beginning of this chapter, where everyone can no longer dream because of this experiment went wrong. And even in the section at the end where he's talking to her, he's like, there's always side effects. Like scientists say they have this plan to make things better, and it always leads to some other fucked up thing. And so in this case, it leads to the White Plague where nobody can dream, and he's the only one who can still dream. And so he's going there and is anointed at this place because he's the only one in the world that's still dreaming, and they're trying to figure out how to fix their problem. But that's all reversed in here. And it made me think that as I hit that, like I said it last week about the test and how this all worked, but it hadn't occurred to me that it's not till the very end. But as I started thinking about how it's kind of like inverted or almost like an infinity loop of like the narrative logic, there's the middle point is his dream. And so the dreamed part is the main part of this section, but we're surrounding it by two other things. But it's really, I get really fascinated by his structures. And I think it does take me reading it slowly like this to really see like how all these pieces come together, especially like in the past when I've read this, it's for like editing it line by line or checking every typo, which I found another one this time. I found 3 mistakes I've made so far. Pissed me off. But there's a lot of words. So it's like 3 out of like whatever.
That's a really good percentage. Yeah.
Yeah. But like a cool example would be, I really like I haven't read through everything, so I'm going through this completely blind, only section by section. So I have no idea what I'm talking about, which is normal. It's par for the course for me. But like I liked on page 67, in the middle of it. So it mentions the White Plague. Something horrible was unleashed. Something was unleashed that could not be put back. If sleep deprivation is a direct route to psychosis, then dream deprivation, and you get like that cliffhanger. Right. Yep. So what happens when we get dream deprivation? And then like there's like a little payoff maybe on page 85 when he goes when he talks about psychopaths, like people that aren't or what happens in like the Kruger when the teens stop, like they all go crazy. Right. So it's kind of like foreshadowing, you know, what could be happening when there's dream deprivation and as it's starting to come, right, versus sleep deprivation. But just tiny little like breadcrumbs that he'll sprinkle along every now and then. It's only a line somewhere packed in this giant, dense, you know, maximal, energetic, exuberant paragraph. You'll get like that one little line every now and then that's like, uh-oh. But I thought that was a great example on like 67, right?
Yeah.
Well, what happens when they have dream deprivation and the White Plague, and so. And actually, there is a plot, but yeah.
On page 91, during the conversation, there's a mention from Ella too, saying those who never. So this would be before the White Plague. You know, those who never remember their dreams are more likely to end up being Contrary to the depiction of them insisted on in movies as visionaries when they close their eyes, dangerous psychopaths, mad scientists, serial killers.
Serial killers, yeah. Which my wife never remembers her dreams. So when I
I never do either. This really scared me.
Oh my god! I like
like, oh, perfect.
I remember my dreams like vivid, precise dreams, like almost all the time. And I was super pissed this week before this, especially last night was okay, but the night before, all my dreams were just like clutter, and I couldn't get anywhere, and everything was just like. I was trying to take a shower in the gym, and it was like all the doorways led to not the shower, and I couldn't find my pants, and like there was just stuff everywhere. And I was like, it was like a true anxiety dream. And I was like, fuck this. This is bullshit. My dreams are supposed to be the good place. Like, I am not happy about this. I have this city that I go to all the time. It's consistent. I enjoy it there. I know where things are. My happiness is there. There's certain people that recur over and over again. But then I get this clutter dream. No, I'm not going to stand for it. Right, but the line I liked before there was, and the statistics confirm that more creative people remember their dreams more and better than more rational and pragmatic people. I was like, oh, thank God I'm not a rational or pragmatic person.
Well, the rational versus creative is a theme throughout this whole section. I feel like.
Yeah.
So.
Well, especially in the dialogue that they have, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Which has a direct mention of Twin Peaks multiple times.
I was wondering when you were going to get to that.
16 minutes and 20 seconds.
Yeah, because even
one was counting.
Yeah, not bad.
On it, 16 minutes is as long as I lasted. I thought that this section, even more so than the first half, I thought that this one really rang. Like, I love this part. Like, I love the beginning with all the recurring dreams of Ella, but I think that it really, in the second half, becomes something like truly amazing and works as a whole. I mean, it is interesting with his books that these sections are like almost like little novellas of a sort, and that once you have read the whole thing, it's easier to like see how it all fit together and what was going on. And I think he's brilliant, and this is a brilliant section for that reason, and super fun. Yeah.
When he brings up Lynch, actually, there's two parts of this section where his referential stuff is so much fun to read. When he brings up Lynch, he goes through like a litany of movies, and it's awesome, like and litany of movies and directors. But then he does the same thing with music early on too.
Yep, page. This is the playlist for this season, page 62. I was gonna hear Enter Sandman this time, but I'm afraid Metallica will sue me.
Well, I was impressed with the Belle and Sebastian pull.
Yeah, me too. I was like, that's a wild one. I would not have guessed. Like,
yeah, because we're used to now Bob Dylan, King, Talking Heads. We're used to, and Belle and Sebastian. It's like that's a little later and more indie,
Yeah. I don't even know which album that's from.
I don't either.
I always picture Rodrigo as just decrepit and old. He is with some of the hip references from the early 2000s. only going back 20 years.
Well, the one right after it is Frank Sinatra, so that's back to
and Bob Dylan's on the next page.
Well, and Bob Dylan's throughout, right? That's the song he can't remember.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And the author that he can't remember is Nabokov, obviously. Yeah. And it does come up at the end too.
Norbakov, or however you say his name.
Nabokov. Vladimir. They that Vladimir said differently. It's not Vladimir. It's like Vladimir. When you look it up online, it's very weird. I found that once when I was trying to figure out how to say anything correctly and can't.
I listened to the Talking Heads song "Dream Operator" quite a few times because I know quite a few Talking Heads songs. I didn't know that one, and it was really delightful hearing it and then reading it and the lyrics and then having the lyrics in it. Like, that might be a good one for this for this section. Seems important to it.
Seems definitely important. So,
but I still go. I think we should just be Mariah Carey this whole season.
Dude, I had to watch that video in order to get that song for last week's thing. And my God, what did we grow up in?
How 90s is that video? You guys, if you're listening, go Google Dream Lover or whatever, Mariah Carey. That is a great music video. It is a time capsule.
Blow your mind. In 1991, weird. We were very weird. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So yes, I summed up the plot part of that, which is fun. So I don't know where we want to take this. There's so many different.
Well, like speaking of,
Interesting.
I thought Derek brought up a really great point about how he kind of like slides in this like something really sad, usually like just in a line. And for me, that happened on uncoincidentally on page 69. Sorry, right near the top, it talks about seeing Aya, and it's the woman of his dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And just how sad it is to have the woman of your dreams, because it's kind of been set up where like you don't get, if you dream it, it's gone. Or if you like, it's setting it like, don't be in love with her, don't call her the woman of your dreams. That means this is going to be tragic and terrible. Like this isn't going to end well, is it? And it's just one line, but just the fact that it's the author's calling her the woman of his dreams is like, oh no.
Yeah.
It's called the dream. In the dream part, it's like, oh, that's worrisome.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't seem promising.
Yeah.
The parts that I have marked for my favorite lines are all related to that too. It was sort of breaking me up a little bit. Like it's very sad and very intense, and like the emotional parts of it are really wild. Like the related to what you just said on page 70. Happy because unlike his recurrent dream of Ella or Aya, nobody was and nothing could wake him up now. He could no longer feel the sadness when he opened his eyes, the melancholy of wondering how much time would pass before their next meeting in his dreams.
Yeah.
Way to pick the most depressing Chad part of the whole section.
Don't worry, I've got more. I have a lot of those this time. I was reading this alone in the morning, being like, fuck. I don't know that I'm emotionally prepared for this, Rodrigo.
See, it's interesting. When I do a first read of him, I am sad at points like that. But every time I reread, like I did with this, I'm cracking up laughing most of the time. It's the humor the second time around that, like, he does something really cool on 74, where, first off, he has a great line, which he admits is a great line. It's night is the factory of tomorrow in the museum of yesterday. Someone else wrote, and yes, he does remember that someone is and was him. At the end of that paragraph, he says, yes, it's a good line, which I love that. Like that, I love that aspect. But then the next sentence, and if museums are the place where infinity goes up on trial, like that's obviously a direct call to the Bob Dylan line, you know, and who's somebody he's talked about throughout. Like, and it's just like little funny referential hints like that the second time I catch.
Yeah. It's interesting because it is space. It's not like it works under dream logic, although it sort of does, I guess. But there are like all these little, like right below that is one of the hints of to like the plot. So like you're saying, there's those little droplets that come through. But it's the thing from before, the thing about the experiment, the thing about the Miriam. Something went wrong there. Something was set adrift, floating in the waves into a nightmare with no land in sight where it can open its eyes. Is like an obscure sort of reference to what the plot thread of that is. I mean, of course, everything else is like very woven. This section and does have that sort of like dreamlike quality in the sense that dreams have so many weird layers and little bits to them that seem to stand out. But like if you can't remember your dreams, maybe you don't know what I'm even talking about. Your dreams can be anything.
Nothing. Those are my daydreams, but not when I'm actually sleeping.
I don't think I would be able to.
Why would I remember dreams when I'm just plotting to kill everybody? I've got better things to worry about. You know how hard it is to be psychotic? It's a lot of effort. You have to be like really like Hannibal Lecter and shit. That's a lot. That is a lot of calories going to those thoughts.
I mean, you first off have to come up with your own brand. Like, what's going to distinguish you? Mm-hmm. What's your name going to be? Oh no. Okay, no more serial killer talk. but there's something about like dreams that are textures. There's a texture to them, and there's little things that sort of recur or that weave themselves throughout. And in a sense, this whole chapter seems to be like he's trying to explain what it is to describe a dream without being like taking into mind all those dictums and cliches about like tell a dream, lose a reader, do this, lose that. And like there's that great bit somewhere in here of like, oh yeah, it's right there, it's 75. How many possible readers has he already lost? Having written like back in the day, and like, but it does feel, and tying into like the writer trying to figure out how to create a dream, film a dream, or put a dream into film that would make sense. This section is almost like looking on like creating a dream without being so explicitly like, this is a dream, this is blank, but like the logic of it sort of works the same. And the sort of the way that the plot's inverted, that seems to happen in my dreams all the time. Like it's a very like Pintonian thing too, of like the explanation comes after the consequence. You're always getting things flipped around. There's a term for that too. It's like prolipsis or something like that. Someone smarter knows what I'm talking about. But it's like a way in which you reverse cause and effect in book to like create a different sort of tension. And that's happening in here specifically because we know that the ending part, but not the why of it until the very last bit.
Yeah, I like the idea of you had mentioned it briefly. I just thought it was such a neat line where he talked about like, you know, dialogue is supposedly communication, but he prefers the liquid syntax of thought, or something along like it's some great line. Like, fuck, I wish I would have wrote that. Damn.
Yeah.
But I like that idea of like within dreams, like the juxtapositions can be so crazy because you're not trying to think of them or make them logical or try to make sense of it, and it has this way of communicating something that's not possible if you're cogent and trying to order them in a way, you know.
And that's the thing.
I don't know if any of that makes any sense, but
no, it definitely does. Because there's even the line in here where it talks about like when people wake up and recount their dreams, they force them into a logical order. Like you tend to like fill in the gaps and refix things because you need a narrative, so you create like that sort of narrative. Whereas like the real dream itself is much more sporadic and like disconnected. And that's just the way that lines work. And so it does make it like the idea of like having the importance of dreams within this is like really central because it does end up as that balance of like the rational world versus this creative unhinged world where you're not in control of things. Like the kind of yin and yang of like waking and sleeping is really, really key. And it seems to be like a theme that kind of plays throughout here too. But I want to say one thing first, but besides that, on 77, Brian, here we go. He always had the uncertain certainty that his dream should look and sound like a certain music video from the golden age of MTV, like Mariah Carey, I think. A dream of mom cut off jeans and bunches of people singing in the field.
So I had this weird experience growing up where I grew up right when MTV was just starting. And my parents were in college when I was a kid. And so MTV was always like nonstop on the TV all the time. Because it was like this new cool thing like, hey, look, you can see the Dire Straits video. This is amazing. Or, you know, whatever. So all like probably like from like 84 to 80. Yeah, it would have been like 84 to like 87. I watched every single second of MTV that ever existed. Like on constant loop because like it was like the iPad. It was like the iPad to keep me from crying as a kid. That all of our kids are watching the like Johnny and the Shark Dance thing. Like, yeah. And so this golden age of MTV is like right in my wheelhouse. Like that is like stuck being like 3, 4, 5, 6, watching everything MTV. I can't.
My God. My golden age was 120 minutes. Obviously, that was it, and that was a counting time. Yeah, like oh man, those are fun days. That was when MTV was fun. I don't know what it is anymore. I think it's just movies or TV shows about kids that are pregnant, right?
I have.
I think Real World kind of ruined it because they got such great ratings from reality television. They just kind of spun off that way and kind of ditched music videos. And plus, like I think Hype Williams ruined it too because every music video has to cost like $9 million now and have like people smoking cigars on a yacht with a helicopter and like that shit got too expensive. And it's like, no, just like do a YouTube video and you're good.
Dude, that's like every day. That's what I'm just out on those yachts with cigars.
Speaking of like today's music, speaking of today's music, how great would it be for? I want to know what Rodrigo. We'll ask him when he's on, but his thoughts on the Billie Eilish's "Where Do We Go When We Dream" or what is the name of her album? I don't listen to her, so I don't know. But she has that terrible. It's like the stupidest name for an album, right? Like, "Where Do We Go When We Dream?" Or it has.
I'm gonna find it.
Sorry, I'm not hip with anything new, but
it is called.
It seems like the wheelhouse of music.
When we all fall asleep, where do we go?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Holy shit,
Perfect.
it's really dumb. When we all fall asleep, where do we go? And it's in all caps. And the first song is just 7 exclamation marks. That's it.
Hell yeah. That's right.
Oh my goodness. Yep.
So I take back no talking heads. I want the 7 exclamation. I don't know what that song is, but let's do 7 exclamation points for the start of this.
7 exclamation point. Works for me.
Yeah, because where do we go when we're asleep? You know, because we're not here.
One of the things that I marked down here too that I think about is like when he's talking about dreams in the conversation with Ella, he says like there seems to be a way that it's almost commenting on literature as a whole. So on like page 105 is it says like what we're after, what we're seeking is for our dreams to become practical and useful and in a way rational. So we could keep working on our dreams so we could find practical and logical solutions in them. So in a way, our dreams could be made reality because they're reality, they're realistic, logical, going from A to B and not from C to X. And I thought that's kind of like how, you know, MFA, University of Iowa writing is supposed to be of like clear, concise, whatever. And he's like, no, dreams are important. The way that he writes is very much not that. It's like the opposite of that. And this section really informs that and just shows that, demonstrates it. And I kind of thought there's always times in his books where I feel like it's a commentary on the literary scene, but like but from a different angle. That's not really saying it correctly at this place.
Yeah, I so completely. I have the next little paragraph highlighted as well, where it seems to me some apparently irrational things are the foundations atop which reason is held up and erected and fortified. Maybe, as they say, when we dream, we let ourselves go mad for a while, and that's how we're able to tolerate seeing ourselves forced to be sane so much of the time, the other 2/3 of our lives, right? That part really, I really, really liked that juxtaposition for the purpose, but also in connection with what you're saying, kind of the way that he writes, the way that he, you know, creates this is, you know, I was saying earlier about like the sadness that's underneath. It's like all of this stuff is maximalist, it feels like, in a way, so he doesn't go insane telling you a very simple story about his nephew. You know,
Yeah.
So I really like that. I like how it's like wrapped up in that about, you know, it's not, this is to keep us sane. We've got to go mad for this little period of time.
That's really true. That makes a lot of sense. That really works. And it's such a good book. I like the dialogue part a lot. Like, even it's funny because he does have that stuff about like hating the dialogue thing and going to do it, but I think it's fun. Like I enjoy it. I mean, it does have that moment where it's like just listing all the movies. Like it's like the most unnatural sort of form of dialogue in a way, but also like basically how Rodrigo interacts. It makes total sense.
But it's pretty good. Like the two voices are different. You know, like for someone who hates dialogue, like, you know, it's a pretty good job at it. Like you never lose the thread of who's talking.
I only did at one point when they got into that film section where Tarkovsky makes me sleepy. He doesn't make dreams. Fellini, not him either. I had to go back and say, like, who is the writer? Who is Ella? One thing that's funny too is that it's always fun to find the ones that you know, so, or like the references. So on 98, I have something here Susan Sontag wrote, an introduction to an Icelandic writer, almost the last one she wrote, where she stipulates that time and space are mutable in the dream novel, the dream play. Time can always be revoked. Space is multiple. And I remember that specifically is from Under the Glacier. And I remember I was proofing it. I went and got the book to make sure that we had the line correct in there. Because that was like the one time it's like, oh, that's Susan Sontag introduction. It's like, boom, I know that. I know that book.
That was awesome.
Felt so smart for like 7 seconds. But man. I gotta tell you this. Okay, so there's a bit on page 95 where it says that people like do all kinds of things in their sleep. The sleep disorders like night terrors, bedwetting, narcolepsy, teeth grinding, talking and making love, and eating and even texting while asleep. It says, really, seriously, what do people text? That's what I'm dreaming, which is really funny. I found a text to myself from like 4 a.m. in the morning, like a couple weeks ago, that I think was supposed to be the plot to a book. Let me see if I can find it again. It says,
let's not confuse drunk and dreaming, though. Those are different things, by the way. Okay, just because you don't remember doing it doesn't mean you were dreaming. Okay.
I somehow woke up and texted myself, and it says something like, "Before you fall in the puddle, when you learn that there are no superheroes." And I was like, "What the fuck is that?" I don't know what that was, but 4:42 in the morning, I apparently texted this to myself.
That sounds like the Billie Eilish follow.
Where was I when I was streaming? I was just somewhere. I was in a puddle, apparently. Oh man, what other parts did you guys really like in this?
I really enjoyed the dialogue part of it, and again, I think part of it was just the primer of here's why dialogue is lame, and here's why I don't like Chekhov, and now I'm going to do a bunch of dialogue, but I'll just do it a little bit different, okay? It's almost like if you're super smart and super cynical, like it's the only way you can do a scene of dialogue versus just, like me, I'll just write it and, whatever. Low-hanging fruit's pretty good for me. I don't have to reach for it. Haha. Like, so I just love the way I love the way he like sets it up and then executes. And I just had to give a 2.5-hour lecture on dialogue last week. So I was really on the forefront. Yeah, it was brutal. all on Zoom. So yeah, fun times.
Yeah, Zoom is.
But it's been on the forefront of my thought. I've been reading a lot about it and stuff. So that part was great. On page 85 is when Nabokov is talking about how to use dialogue correctly. Is that a shot across the bow on Steinbeck?
The
formless speeches filling page after page, over which the eye skims like a flying saucer over the Dust Bowl. Do you think that's because Steinbeck was like, Steinbeck was he used a lot of dialogue, had a lot of opinions on dialogue. I wonder if that's Nabokov having like a little shot at a contemporary.
That's really funny. I meant to look this up, but with the Nabokov stuff too, I think that there's a book of his dreams that came out last year, or like a dream journal that he kept. That I know that Rodrigo is reading. It's called Insomniac Dreams: Experiments with Time by Vladimir Nabokov. It was his dream diary. Was published on October 14th, 1964. Vladimir Nabokov, a lifelong insomniac, foreshadowing, began a curious experiment. Over the next 80 days, immediately upon waking, he wrote down his own dream. And this book was published like last year. So I think that I don't know if he read it before he read this, but it's interesting that Nabokov is in here and that book, his dream journal, exists as well. Yeah. I always meant to buy it because he mentioned it to me and I didn't. Maybe I'll get the ebook from somewhere.
That's when you know you've made it. It's like Lydia Davis. Like she writes something down on a cocktail napkin at the airport and it's published in a book. Like we're just like, oh, here's some shit I wrote down. Can we publish it? All right, whatever.
Yeah, sure.
It's just an idea I had on the back of a receipt. We'll take it.
It's now a story.
That's when you made it.
That is true. That is
true. That's true genius there.
I'm curious what when Nabokov's dreams would have been like. Very weird.
It's all butterflies and rape, I'm sure.
Yep. Oh my god. Oh my god.
That's funny though. But before reading this on that dialogue talk, I had brought up Nabokov and his use of dialogue and how efficient and fantastic it was. So it's just kind of randomly cool that.
For your dialogue talk, what did you use as examples for your dialogue talk, or what did you learn, or what did you focus on?
Well, it was more of kind of a beginner class, so I wanted to keep it very simple and straightforward, and I mostly used Hemingway as like a more literary example, and then I used Elmore Leonard as a more kind of like day-to-day example. But I mean, this is like trying to get people to say like, "What are you doing?" He questioned, like trying to like get rid of that kind of stuff. Like, we're talking like very base level. Like this wasn't a real intense talk, right? Like,
they're not ready for JR. That's the pinnacle of the dialogue mountain. Have you read that before, Brian?
No, I have not.
Oh, have you read it, Derek?
JR, yeah.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. It is wonderful. It is an amazing, in terms of dialogue, like it feels almost unbelievable how long it is and how consistent those voices are. Yep. Nobody's identified very often. at all, and you can read like the first 100 pages and then go anywhere in that book and know exactly who's speaking from like almost no context. It's amazing. It's an amazing feat. And anyone for creating voices and how to create different voices and how to create different kind of ways of speaking, I don't know that there's a better example that's been written. It's absolutely phenomenal.
I don't know. I actually tend to be a little bit like the narrator here. I'm not a big fan of dialogue for the most part. I mean, I think it's not typically what I go towards. You know, it's interesting. You said Leonard and Hemingway in an introductory way, and Raymond Chandler's my favorite dialogue. Right spot in the middle there, you know, where it's real, you know, but it's so pithy and stuff, but it's fun to read, you know, but it's right in between being literary and real. But for the most part, like if he hadn't have mentioned in that beginning not liking Chekhov, I wonder if I would have even noticed that there's not much dialogue in these books. I mean, this is 1,000 pages now I've read and didn't even notice, oh yeah, there's not a whole lot of dialogue, you know, like I don't typically miss it when it's not there. It was cool to see that he could also master that, you know, but you kind of notice how much there is lacking throughout the other two books.
True. It's interesting because there might not be dialogue, but there's definitely voices. And like in the contrast to like thinking of like some of the more like not Sebald per se, but the Sebaldian type of writers that use a lot of exposition and descriptive passages and very like, oh, there's like the book Esther Kinsey. River is very much like this, where there's no dialogue and it's like very descriptive. And this has like much more energy and juice than those books in a lot of ways to me, and feels like different voices are speaking, as if the dialogue is like within the text itself rather than a person-to-person sort of idea.
Yeah,
real stretch. I'm going to use it. I like it because I think that in some ways dialogue is just like creating a voice and creating a character through that in a way.
Well, and so many times it's used here effectively the same way, as a way to flesh out an argument and a dialogue, right, in sort of a different way. And this, I still think that most of the dialogue is focused on the rational versus the irrational, and then sort of the limits of rationality, you know, because we know eventually that these experiments are going to have side effects that are going to, you know, produce the White Plague, and it's going to be awful, you know, and he is already, you know, the he that's in these dialogues is already hinting at, well, you know, this could happen. Have you thought about this? You know, and it's setting up that kind of argument, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. There's like in both of the books, like a serious nod towards like the idea of creativity and where it can even come from, like the invented part. Like where does the invented part come from? It's not, you're not just writing your life. You're creating something or inventing something that makes it tellable. And in here, dreams serve that function as like without the dreams, we don't have a certain amount. We're too rational. There's a lack of creativity in some sense, and opposing those two things too.
Yeah, it's fun. I think in the first season, you guys did that. You know, what would be your blurb for this? You know, like funny idea.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking my blurb would be, ever wonder how writers get their ideas?
Yeah.
The inventive part, you know, which is like the thing he hates throughout the whole text, right? But it's kind of true. It's like, well, this is it. You know, here you go.
Yep. I think the copy for this, I think, was written by Will Vanderheiden. I'm almost positive that he wrote it and we just tweaked it a bit for the catalog and then just used it in the end. So all on you, Will. We'll have to do that again. This is another impossible book to like summarize and like a pithy statement. Unless you only take this section. This section would work under your crazy scheme, Brian, of like X's. I forget how does it go? Like there's like the jacket copy has something like you have to begin with like the name of the character and like what they're doing, a question about them, a problem. It's a very specific formula.
I think it starts with like blank, insert name of character is a blank, give their occupation, who is blank, and like what do they want, or you know.
The writer is a writer who dreams a recurring dream.
Yeah. but suddenly insert inciting incident. Right? That's where the record scratch happens on the movie trailer. But when suddenly he turns into his dad, his life turns upside down. Can he go? Can an 8th grader run a multi-billion-dollar corporation? Like that's the. That's where the record scratch happens.
Yeah.
When the person wakes up and he's like, "Oh no."
That's amazing.
I'm Judge Reinhold. I'm Judge Reinhold all of a sudden. What am I gonna do now? I'm not Fred Savage anymore. Like that's that movie. Yeah.
Yep.
That's the equation I have to do all back jacket copy. Yeah. I thought it's interesting too. The entire dialogue is in like the
typewriter font.
Like the footnote, right?
Yeah, but it is a footnote. Technically, I have a funny thing about that. So yeah, because it says like I'm gonna do. Where is it? It's right before it starts. It says
where he bashes Chekhov. No, after that.
Yeah, wait. It is
85?
Yeah, here it is. On 86, where it's like, but as a kind of apology for his almost zombie-like artificiality, this is a dream conversation with high informational content that more than one person will want to jump over. But if you do so, jump over it the way you jump a fence, the smile of a sheep wearing the hide of a wolf. The conversation bursting of names and titles that he hopes he'll be forgiven for here. Could this be his apology and excuse? By turning it into the longest footnote, scrambling up onto the shoulders of all of this and sitting down and leaning back and resting its neck and falling asleep and dreaming. And then we get that dream conversation, or conversation about dreams. Yeah, it's super fun.
That's cool, yeah.
I love it. I'm really enjoying rereading this again, too. This is like a good thing to pass the time. As we say, pass the time. Like, the two things that I'm doing are like reading books slowly but surely and like not chewing my fingernails for the first time in my life. So I can like tap. Like I have fingernails finally. I've always am chronic nail biter. Like I've never had nails. I also never shaving again, I don't think. So like I'm gonna be like Howard Hughes in like a day.
The silver lining of pandemic, I can tap my fingers on things.
How come nobody told me how fun it was to have fingernails? It's wild. You can make sounds. Like I have no idea. Blows my mind.
I've got an empty box of Puffs as house slippers. They slide nice. It's really fun.
Yep.
There's a lot of good coming. A Pringles can hold about 2 bladders worth of urine. And I'm going crazy.
And I'm terrified of germs.
Yeah.
All kind of tracks. We're all going to be Howard Hughes by the end of this, aren't we?
Yes, absolutely we are.
Yeah. I hope that's the pull quote for this episode. A can of Pringles can hold 2 bladders of urine. Join us on episode 2. As we're all going stir crazy in our quarantine. Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah, not to derail this, but how are you guys holding up?
Yeah.
Ryan's like, doesn't matter. Same old.
Nah, my wife works at the hospital. We're gonna get it, so whatever. So I don't get it too bad, but it's like, I'm gonna get shot. I just hope it's not in the face. Like that's basically what it is. Like I know I'm gonna get shot. Just hopefully it's like in the leg, and I'll be okay. But yeah, whatever.
I thought the eventual like upending of our world would be more instantaneous. So the only thing that I've been feeling is the shock of slow motion. Like coming really. So it's like you see it the whole time. So that
I thought my skin would be boiling from the nuclear blast, not like hey, you got 3 weeks until this is gonna crush your face. Oh, cool.
Right.
It's a great point. That was a really good point.
Yeah.
And it's like I think that I would have liked to have hoped that I would have done something more productive. Like if you gave me this scenario, but it turns out not at all. I'm gonna watch the Tiger King.
Yeah.
His last words before getting put on the ventilator were Joe Exotic. That sucks. Well, that sucks.
Oh my god. So, no, do you guys have anything else you want to talk about with this section?
No, I'm running out of battery, so.
Why don't you tell us what your favorite line was?
Let's see what I'll just thumb through till I find something underlined, I guess. Do you have one
I have
primed
one.
and ready to go? Sure.
I do, but I want to find something first, so someone else go.
I laughed. I just put a big ha on page 75. I already mentioned it. Again, just in case, is there anybody out there? How many possible readers has he already lost having written all this like he did back in the days when he wrote and slept and dreamed of writing and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I love that.
I thought about you, Chad, during that part, because somebody telling you their dream is a little bit like somebody telling you about their fantasy team. You know?
Yeah.
Like the baseball aspect, it's like, yeah, I don't want to know who's hitting 300. Thank you.
Nobody hits 300 anymore. That's a dream.
Plus, and it has the sneaky reference to, I assume it's, what is anybody out there? Is that The Wall, Pink Floyd?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anybody out there? Right? Yeah.
What's your favorite dream?
My favorite part was back to that same theme of the scientific on page 67. The history of humanity and even the great scientific advances is overrun with episodes and errors like this, but none of them was as important and decisive as the one they caused with their triumphant defeat. But unlike what happened on other occasions, no serendipity here. It wasn't by seeking something miraculous they found something else more or less marvelous. So nothing good and everything really, really bad. The worst came of turning on the lights of the White Plague.
Yeah, that's wild. That's great. The one that I like is back to the maudlin side of things. On 65, every time he sees her, he sees again how he falls in love, how he stays in love, how he'll love her until the end of his dreams, until the end of the last dream he has left.
Jeez.
I'm lonely, guys.
Yeah.
Here.
It was darker hearing you read it than it was reading it in my own head.
It's pretty. It's beautiful. A little heartbreaking, just a touch. So next week, I think Patrick Smith's going to come on, and we're going to talk about the first of. It'll take us 3 episodes to get through the second section. The other night, irrational catalog for an exhibition of restless shadows, and for the first one for next week, we'll talk about pages 112 through 155. And this is where we go back to Penelope. So we switch from the writer to his sister. We'll try and recap her story where it was next episode we can recap where she was, but we get into the sister side of things now for a while.
Oh, perfect. Just as I get some footing, we'll pull the rug out. Sounds great.
And you'll pull the rug out in 2 ways that are really interesting. Yes.
Can't. Just along for the ride.
And some tulpas. Wuthering Heights plus tulpas. This is a fun time. That's a great section. But anyways, again, anyone listening, download the book for free up until April 1st. I don't know. You have anything you want to plug, Brian?
No, just be kind, be safe, and let's just be human. Enjoy each other. We could still have plenty of time for love and connection, even in weird times. So not to be sappy, but that's all.
I just read about a dream lover, which again would be
and go watch Dream Lover, and if you survive it, go read some good books.
Yeah, read some books. Derek, where can people find you online?
At Twitter, I'm on @DerekMainReads. So follow me there. I always put up my video reviews and what I'm reading, what I'm getting into at the moment.
And it is DEREKMAINE reads.
Yes.
Who's listening and that doesn't see it.
That's right. Maine like the state.
Like the state. Absolutely. And yeah, check out the YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Read the World. You get lots of good reviews of lots of great books from all over. So
awesome. Thank you. Wash your hands, everyone.
You stay safe too. Have fun homeschooling both of you. I'm gonna go back and continue dreaming and flying for a while. So there's that.